I used to be the kind of person who rolled my eyes at ghost stories. Paranormal investigators, seances, haunted houses, all nonsense designed to separate gullible people from their money. That certainty died on a cold October night in Charleston, South Carolina, in a hotel room that should never have been rented out. The inn looked like something from a postcard. 3 stories of weathered brick and white columns, draped in Spanish moss and southern charm. I'd booked it last minute when my original hotel canceled due to structural issues. It had exactly 1 room available. Room 313, the desk clerk said, sliding the old-fashioned brass key across the marble counter. She was maybe 19, with hollow eyes that seemed too old for her face. 3rd floor, end of the hall. I joked about the unlucky number. She didn't smile. Some guests find it memorable, was all she said. The room itself was a time capsule. Antique 4-poster bed, faded Persian rugs, and furniture that creaked when you looked at it wrong. The bathroom was small but elegant, with subway tiles and a large oval mirror framed in tarnished silver. That mirror bothered me from the start, though I couldn't say why. Something about the way it caught the light made my reflection look wrong, not distorted exactly, but somehow separate from me. I dismissed it as travel fatigue and went to bed early. Big mistake. At 2:39 a.m., I woke to a room so cold my breath came out in visible puffs. The heater sat silent in the corner, though I distinctly remembered the steady hum it had made when I fell asleep. But it wasn't the cold that made my skin crawl, it was the sound coming from the bathroom. Tap. 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 Like fingernails drumming against glass, slow and deliberate. I lay frozen, listening to the rhythm repeat exactly 12 times before stopping. In the silence that followed, I heard the unmistakable squeak of a faucet turning. Water began to run. I crept to the bathroom doorway, my bare feet numb against the hardwood floor. The cold tap was wide open, and the mirror had fogged over despite no hot water running. But there, clear as day in the condensation, was a small handprint. Child-sized. Fresh. The bathroom lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. In that stuttering illumination, I saw something that made my blood freeze. My reflection was brushing its teeth. I stood in the doorway, perfectly still, watching my mirror self perform its nightly routine with mechanical precision. It squeezed toothpaste onto the brush, turned on the water, began scrubbing with the same motions I'd made hours earlier. But its eyes, my eyes, never looked directly at me. They stayed focused on some point just over my shoulder. I backed away slowly, but my reflection continued its ritual, oblivious to my real movements. When it finally looked up, our eyes met for just a moment. It smiled. A cold, knowing expression I'd never worn, before the lights went out completely. I spent the rest of the night huddled in the bedroom chair, every lamp blazing. At first light, I packed and fled to the front desk. The same hollow-eyed clerk was there, looking like she hadn't slept either. Checking out early, she asked without surprise. The mirror, I managed. In 313. There's something wrong with it. Her expression softened, almost pitying. You saw her too. Her. Emma. She was 7 when she drowned in the bathtub in that room, back in 1953. This used to be her family's house before it became a hotel. The clerk's voice dropped to a whisper. They say mirrors hold memories, especially when something terrible happens in front of them. Emma's been trying to finish what she started that night, getting ready for bed like any normal little girl. But why did I see myself? Why was it my reflection? The clerk's face went pale. You said you saw yourself brushing your teeth. I nodded. Mr. Henderson, what time did you brush your teeth last night? Around 10, maybe 10:30. Why? She pulled out a leather-bound ledger and flipped through pages with shaking fingers. Emma drowned at 2:39 a.m. on October 15, 1953. The police report said she was found still holding her toothbrush. She looked up at me with those haunted eyes. She wasn't showing you the past. She was showing you the future. My knees gave out. I gripped the marble counter as her words sank in. Every guest who sees their reflection in that mirror. She continued, they all report the same thing. Watching themselves brush their teeth at 2:39 a.m. And every single one of them. What? I whispered. They're found the next morning in the bathtub. Drowned. Still holding a toothbrush. I stumbled backward toward the door, but she called after me. Mr. Henderson. You checked out in time. But Emma's patient. She's been waiting 70 years to finish her bedtime routine. And now she knows what you look like. I drove straight home that day, a 12-hour trip I should have broken into 2. I couldn't stop thinking about that cold smile in the mirror, the way my reflection had moved independently, following some script I'd never written. That was 2 years ago. I've never been back to Charleston, never stayed in another old hotel. But sometimes, late at night when I'm brushing my teeth, I catch my reflection hesitating just a fraction of a second too long. And I remember what the desk clerk said about mirrors holding memories. Emma is patient, but she hasn't forgotten. The bathroom lights flickered as I finished writing this. It's 2:38 a.m. Time to brush my teeth. The MRVT Research Institute looked innocent enough during the day, just another corporate building with tinted windows and manicured landscaping. But Marcus had learned that places could wear masks, hiding their true nature until darkness fell. He'd taken the night security job 3 weeks ago, drawn by the unusually high pay for what seemed like simple work. The building housed some kind of data analysis company, though Marcus had never seen more than a handful of employees during shift changes. The executives who'd hired him were vague about what exactly they analyzed, mentioning only behavioral patterns and predictive modeling. The first 2 weeks passed without incident. Marcus would arrive at 10 p.m., check the perimeter, and settle into the small security office on the ground floor. The building had 5 floors, but his instructions were clear: stay on the ground level unless absolutely necessary. The upper floors were restricted access, even for security personnel. It was on a Tuesday night, around 2 a.m., when Marcus first heard the elevator. The soft ding echoed through the empty lobby, followed by the mechanical whir of doors opening. Marcus frowned at the bank of security monitors. The elevator camera showed an empty car, doors agape, waiting. He watched for several minutes, but no one emerged. Eventually, the doors closed with another soft ding. Marcus checked the building's access logs. No one had badged in after hours. The elevator had somehow activated on its own, perhaps a malfunction. He made a note to report it in the morning and returned to his rounds. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same floor. The elevator descended from the 5th floor, opened its doors to an empty lobby, and waited exactly 4 minutes before closing. Marcus timed it. By the 4th night, Marcus had developed a theory. Old buildings sometimes had electrical quirks. Maybe the elevator had some kind of scheduled maintenance routine that activated automatically. It was the only logical explanation. That's when he heard the footsteps. Soft, deliberate footsteps echoing from the elevator as its doors opened. But the camera still showed nothing, just an empty elevator car bathed in harsh fluorescent light. The footsteps moved across the lobby, the sound of dress shoes on marble, heading toward the stairwell. Marcus's hands trembled as he switched between camera feeds, following the sound. The stairwell cameras picked up nothing, but he could hear the footsteps climbing, floor by floor, until they reached the 5th floor and stopped. Then silence. Marcus spent the rest of his shift checking and rechecking the footage. The audio picked up the footsteps clearly, but the video showed nothing. No heat signatures, no movement, no disturbances of any kind. The next morning, he confronted his supervisor, Janet, about the elevator incidents. Her reaction was telling. A brief flicker of something like fear crossed her face before she composed herself. "Old building," she said quickly. "Acoustic quirks. Sound travels strangely through the ventilation system." But Marcus noticed something else. Janet avoided looking at the 5th floor when they talked. That night, Marcus made a decision that would haunt him forever. When he heard the familiar ding at 2 a.m., he was ready. As the invisible footsteps crossed the lobby, Marcus left his security station and followed. The stairwell was colder than the rest of the building, and Marcus's breath came out in small puffs as he climbed. Each footstep echoed his own, staying just ahead, just out of sight. By the time he reached the 5th floor, the footsteps had stopped. The 5th floor was different from the others. Instead of the sterile corporate offices below, this floor was divided into small rooms with reinforced doors. Each door had a small window, like observation chambers. And each room was occupied. The people inside weren't quite right. They sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead with vacant expressions. Men and women of various ages, all wearing the same gray clothing, all motionless except for the slow rise and fall of their breathing. Marcus counted 12 rooms, 12 people. In the 13th room, he found the source of the footsteps. The man looked exactly like Marcus, same height, same build, same security uniform. But his eyes were empty, unfocused, staring at the wall. On his chest was a name tag that read, Marcus, Night Security. Real Marcus stumbled backward, his heart hammering. That's when he noticed the small placard beside the door, Subject 13, Behavioral Modeling Complete, awaiting disposal. The elevator dinged behind him. Marcus spun around to see himself, another version of himself, stepping out of the elevator. This Marcus wore the same uniform, carried the same equipment, but moved with mechanical precision. "Time for shift change," the new Marcus said in a voice identical to his own but utterly flat. The original Marcus ran. He sprinted down the stairs, burst through the lobby, and didn't stop until he reached his car. As he fumbled with his keys, he saw the building through his windshield. In the fifth-floor windows, shadowy figures were watching him leave. He never returned to collect his final paycheck. 6 months later, Marcus saw a news article about the Research Institute. The company had been shut down following an investigation into unethical human experimentation. 12 people had been found in containment cells on the 5th floor, all suffering from severe psychological trauma with no memory of how they'd gotten there. The article mentioned that investigators were still searching for a 13th victim, a security guard who had disappeared without a trace. Marcus recognized the photo they'd published as evidence. It was him, but it wasn't him. The eyes were wrong. Empty and staring, just like the others. Sometimes, late at night, Marcus wonders if he actually escaped that building at all. Sometimes he catches himself moving too mechanically, speaking too flatly. And sometimes, when he looks in the mirror, his reflection takes just a moment too long to mimic his movements. The worst part is the dreams. Every night, he dreams of walking through an empty lobby, riding an elevator to the 5th floor, and taking his place in room 13, waiting patiently for someone to come and dispose of him. In these dreams, he can see through the small window in his door. And every night at 2 a.m., he watches himself, the real Marcus, the one who escaped, walking through the lobby, following footsteps that lead nowhere, trapped in a loop he can never break.